So it was announced today that a brand new mini box is coming out, and the kind of icon of the box being the Shooting Quasar Dragon. So what I wanted to do is talk about a deck that I've been using that's pretty similar to it, and using it a bit recently. I'll probably use it during Phase 1 of the KC Cup. That is, this deck that I'm showing is going to be changing a bit, but the reason I'm showing it is it's going to work nicely as a base for adding the new cards too. So definitely some tweaks to come, but I think a lot of the cards that you see here are going to be very valuable, just with those tweaks in there. I find the deck a lot of fun to play. I find kind of Synchro Monsters really cool and have a special place in my heart. So with that, I'll talk about first kind of the engine of the deck. Like, what are you looking to do? And the answer, pretty simply, is get out your high-level Synchro Monsters. Here we're looking at Stardust Warrior, where you can use him to, and this will lead to the strengths too. So the first strength is negates. They are all over the place with this deck. So the first with Stardust Warrior being that you can negate a special summon, you just destroy it like a Stardust card, and the next phase you can bring it back. And with Shooting Star Dragon, you can, once per turn, just negate the activation of a card or card effect. So with those two, you can kind of stymie a lot of what your opponent is doing. You can use Scrap Iron Signal, which works really similar to Scrap Iron Scarecrow, but instead of negating a monster, as long as you control, a Synchro monster that mentions a Synchro monster as material, you can negate the activation and then put it face down and use it again next turn. So a lot of negates with those two alone. Now you can get like both of these cards out at the same time too, and then have one of these face down. Really, really powerful stuff. Every deck in the game is going to look to be using some card effects in some way, shape, or form. So if you can pick what you're using at what time and use them sparingly, very, very powerful. And Necroid Synchro is another really powerful card for getting like both of these out. You get one of them out, and then you use it, and you can basically get the other one out. And you can also use Forbidden Lands to do, some of those similar things of not being affected by card effects. So if your opponent tries to use them on one of your powerful monsters, a lot of protection, and the monsters are not particularly weak either. They're powerful, so a lot of good stuff there. I will say too, power, I would say, is a strength of this deck. You look at Stardust Warrior, looking at 3,000 attack. Shooting Star Dragon is 3,300 attack, but way beyond there with the special ability of looking at the top 5 cards of your deck, seeing how many are Synchro monsters with this deck, which is going to be a lot of them, usually at least 2 or 3. Also, with the Shooting Star Road effect, you can then place 3 on top of the deck to guarantee that you can attack once per card you get that way. So you can attack up to 5 times. Your opponent's going to have a max of 4 cards in the field. You can destroy everything and then attack directly, like guaranteed if you were to get 5, but either way, being able to attack multiple times with a 3,300 attack monster is incredible. And you can bring the duel to an end pretty damn quickly. So a lot of power there. And I will say flexibility is another really big strong point of this deck. Multiple ways that you can get the Synchro monsters you need to get a summon you want. We have 2 tunings here. You can actually put a third one in as well. You have the O-Lion for protection. Your effect is you're automatically going to start with a converter in the graveyard. You can, bring out a number of different cards, but the flexibility too is within the extra deck, where you can bring out, if you're going first, you can bring out a Chevalier, and you can have a negate already there. So if you get a Chevalier out, and your opponent is using one of their most powerful spell cards, it's going to be help them kind of get to their objective with their deck. You can stop it from working and stop them in their tracks there. You can have, Stardust Dragon, again, a very powerful card for, stopping card destruction and just negating there, like the rest of this deck. I don't need to tell you why Cyber Slash is very powerful, but it's another thing that can work nicely defensively for you. And in many of these cases, it doesn't mean you're just going to have one of these cards in the field. You can get multiple out pretty easily. So a lot of flexibility there. So those would be the strengths. I would say the biggest weakness being just kind of the reliance on chains. So, for example, if to get out like a Stardust Dragon or a Shooting Star Dragon, you have to use, typically, your Junk Synchron. and then you bring Junk Converter out of the graveyard, and then you bring out your Junk Warrior, and then you bring Junk Synchron out again, then you get to Stardust Dragon. A lot of reliance on that chain and bring cards out of the graveyard, things like that. So if your opponent is able to either lock you out of the graveyard or take cards from the graveyard and banish them, things like that, you can be locked out of the chains very easily. I don't think it's too common with like the decks that are being played often today to see a lot of that, but if you can't get to your extra deck here, you're going to have a very low chance of winning the duel, quite frankly. So something to keep in mind there. And the other big weakness is it can be a little bit harder to fill the field of, if we're looking at like Infernoid, for example, or Mech Knights. Like, it's pretty easy to get 3 or 4 monsters on the field. Here, you're talking 2, maybe 3. Now, it's a trade-off for power versus like quantity, and you definitely have the quality there. So that the trade-off between quantity and quality, always one to keep in mind. Not always one right answer, but you're not going to fill the board. So if your opponent has a way to bounce a really powerful monster or something like that, then getting 1 monster off the field can be the difference between winning or losing the duel in some cases. So those are the things to point out. Again, I do recognize these things will change with the new deck, the new mini box, I should say, and how it impacts the deck. And I will probably come back and update this deck in this video based on what we're seeing and I think what works well. But did want to provide this to give a good base towards how to use that new box and really build off of it. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are the Junk and Stardust monsters ones that you enjoy playing with? Do you find them annoying? Happy to hear your thoughts there.